the heiress of New York's billionaire, now facing a cold-blooded divorce. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. In the glittering lights of Manhattan, where elegance drips from every rooftop and power whispers through penthouse walls, they were the golden couple. Elena Morgan-Carter, heiress to the Morgan legacy, philanthropist, fashion icon, adored by the media. Her smile could stop time, and her eyes? They once lit up every room. And then there was Daniel Carter, the man who walked into her life with nothing but charm, ambition, and a smile that promised everything she thought money couldn't buy: love. Together, they were a dream. The couple on magazine covers. The envy of the elite. At every gala, they dazzled. At every red carpet, they radiated chemistry. Champagne toasts, stolen kisses under chandeliers, matching designer outfits. The world saw perfection, but fairy tales are often painted over cracks. Behind the camera flashes, there was silence. Elena sat alone more often now. Across from her at candlelit dinners, Daniel scrolled endlessly through his phone. When she spoke, he nodded, without hearing a word. He came home late, the scent of perfume unfamiliar. And when she asked questions, his answers were short, his smile too practiced. At a black-tie fundraiser hosted in the Morgan Estate ballroom, Elena wore a silver gown that shimmered like starlight. Daniel, tailored to perfection, held her waist like it belonged to him. They smiled for the press, for the board members, for the world. But behind the smile, Elena's fingers trembled. Across the room, standing by the marble balcony, James Morgan watched them. Her father, the man who built an empire from the ground up, ruthless in business, guarded in family. He had never approved of Daniel. He said nothing that night, only sipped his scotch, eyes narrowed, gaze cold. He saw what the world didn't, the way Daniel avoided Elena's eyes. The way his phone lit up with messages he quickly silenced. The way his charm faded when no one was watching. Later that night, long after the guests had left, Elena stood by her bedroom window, looking out over the glittering city. Daniel was in the next room, laughing softly into his phone. He didn't know she was listening. He didn't care. Yeah, I know. She still has no idea. Just a few more weeks. Elena blinked, her breath catching in her throat. The words were vague, but the tone was poison. When Daniel noticed her in the doorway, he ended the call, quickly locking his screen. "Work," he said, shrugging. "You wouldn't understand." He kissed her on the cheek and left the room. The kiss felt like glass, cold and hollow. She didn't ask questions. Not yet. Instead, she pulled out the old photo album tucked inside her nightstand, the one from their honeymoon in Santorini. Back then, they looked real. She clutched the photo of them laughing on the beach, sea breeze in their hair, and for a moment, she remembered what it felt like to be loved, or what she thought was love. Days passed in a blur of designer fittings and charity events. Daniel grew colder, more distracted. He skipped their anniversary dinner, missed her calls, ignored her messages. And when he did come home, it was always with a rehearsed excuse and an empty promise. And yet, the world still believed in the illusion. One morning, Elena sat in the sunroom with her father, sipping espresso in silence. Mr. Morgan rarely spoke about emotions, but his tone carried weight when he finally said, "That boy doesn't look you in the eye anymore." Elena hesitated, pretending to smile. "He's just busy." Mr. Morgan looked at her, truly looked. "So was your mother." But she always had time for the people she loved. She said nothing. She didn't need to. The truth had already taken root. Later that evening, Elena was folding laundry, something no heiress was expected to do, but she did it anyway to feel normal when she stumbled across Daniel's jacket pocket. A small envelope. Unmarked. She opened it. Inside, a hotel room keycard. No note. No name. Just evidence. Her hands trembled, but she placed it back exactly as she found it. She didn't confront him. Not yet. Not until she was sure. She needed to see for herself. The next day, Daniel kissed her forehead before leaving for a late meeting with investors. Elena smiled. He didn't know she followed him. From the backseat of her car, parked across the street, she watched as Daniel entered the luxury hotel. He wasn't alone. A woman in red heels clung to his arm. They laughed. He kissed her on the neck as the elevator doors closed. Elena didn't cry. Not then. She simply leaned back, closed her eyes, and let the silence wrap around her. It wasn't the betrayal that broke her. It was the fact that he never really loved her to begin with. That night, Daniel returned as if nothing had happened. He greeted Elena with a forced smile, bringing her a bouquet of roses. He always brought flowers when he felt guilty. She placed them gently in a crystal vase, then turned to him. "You deleted a voicemail this morning," she said quietly. He froze. "What?" "You looked worried. Then you deleted it." Daniel scoffed, waving it off. "You're imagining things. You've always been sensitive." She stared at him for a long time. "Maybe I've just started paying attention." He laughed and kissed her on the forehead. "I'm going to bed." She didn't follow. Instead, she stepped out onto the balcony and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. "Dad," she said when he answered. There was a long pause on the line. Then, "Are you ready to come home?" Elena's voice didn't shake. "Yes." And in that moment, the chessboard changed. Morning sunlight filtered softly through the ivory curtains of the Morgan-Carter penthouse. Elena stirred, reaching instinctively to the other side of the bed. It was cold. Daniel was already gone. Not unusual. She slipped into her robe and walked toward the vanity, where something new sat waiting. A white envelope. No name. No handwriting. Just placed. Her stomach turned. With slow fingers, she unfolded the single sheet inside. It was a divorce notice. No preamble. No emotion. Just legal terms, bullet points, and a dotted line at the bottom. Unfinished. And signed. No warning. No goodbye. Her knees gave way, and she dropped into the velvet chair. Her eyes scanned the words again, hoping she'd misread. But the coldness of it was undeniable. It wasn't even dated. Just delivered like an invoice. There had been fights, yes. Distance. Strange silences. But this? She sat frozen, paper clenched in her hands as if it might vanish if she squeezed hard enough. An hour passed. Maybe more. Her coffee went cold beside her. The letter remained on her lap like a wound that wouldn't close. Finally, she heard the door. Keys jingling, leather shoes on marble. He was back. She stood, not bothering to wipe the tears. She met him in the hallway. Daniel walked in casually, sunglasses in hand. Joe relaxed like it was any other day. He didn't flinch when he saw her. She held up the letter. He looked at it, then at her. "So you found it?" Just like that. No apology. No shame. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "You couldn't even say it to my face?" Daniel sighed, stepping around her like she was in his way. "I figured this would be easier. Cleaner. Easier for you," she said, following him. He didn't stop. "Don't make this dramatic, Elena. We both knew this was coming." Her voice rose. "No. You knew. I didn't. You didn't say a word. You were cheating, lying, and pretending. And now this." Daniel finally turned, annoyance flickering in his eyes. "You should have seen this coming." She stared at him, searching his face for any trace of the man she married. He wasn't there. He opened the closet and began pulling down suits, tossing them into an open suitcase on the bed. His movements were mechanical, detached. "You're really doing this," she said, more to herself than to him. "You're not the woman I married," he replied flatly. That stopped her cold. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. The insult landed harder than anything he'd said before. It wasn't just cold, it was calculated. "You married me because I was kind," she said quietly. "Because I loved you when no one else did." He zipped the suitcase without looking up. "And now you're boring. Predictable. You sit in this museum of a home, pretending we're some fairy tale couple while I'm suffocating." Her breath hitched. "So you found someone else." Daniel shrugged. "Let's not make it about that." "But it is," she said. "It is about that. It's about how you lied, how you used me. You don't even care that I'm hurting, do you?" He paused, just for a second, then turned to face her. "You'll be fine, Elena. You have your name, your charities, your little empire. You'll cry into silk pillows and move on." He walked past her toward the door. "Don't act like this is a tragedy. You'll land on your feet." "Did you ever love me?" she asked. It was barely a whisper. Daniel stopped, hand on the doorframe. He didn't turn around. "I loved what you represented, not what you became." Then he was gone. The silence left in his wake felt deafening. She stood in the middle of the room, unable to move. The air felt thick, like the walls were closing in. The scent of his cologne still lingered, mixing with the cold scent of betrayal. She walked back into the bedroom, dropped the letter on the nightstand, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen, her lips trembling. She looked unfamiliar, just like he said. But not because she changed, because she gave too much to a man who never deserved her. The sob rose from somewhere deep, sharp, guttural, real. She covered her mouth as it escaped, shoulders trembling, legs finally giving out beneath her. She curled onto the rug in silence. The pain wasn't loud. It was the kind that drains you. Silent, drowning, endless. Somewhere in the quiet, a memory surfaced. Daniel holding her hand during their vows, promising forever. The irony cut deeper than any knife. She stayed there until nightfall. The sun disappeared behind Manhattan's skyline, and the city lights flickered to life outside. Elena slowly stood, wiped her face, and walked to the window. She looked out at the world that had praised their love story, the tabloids that once called them a modern-day fairy tale. What would they say now? She didn't care. Not anymore. She picked up the phone and made a call. When the voice on the other end answered, she spoke with surprising clarity. "Dad?" It started. It was spring when they met. Elena wore a sundress and carried a stack of philosophy books. Daniel was tending bar at a rooftop event she'd snuck into, trying to escape the crushing pressure of being Morgan's daughter. They collided, literally. Coffee spilled. Apologies flew. He had no idea who she was, and she liked it that way. For the first time, someone looked at her without calculation, without expectation, without trying to use her name to open doors. Daniel saw Ellie, the soft-spoken girl who loved street art, jazz on vinyl, and long walks through Central Park. She should have told him. She knew that. But then came the night he asked, gently, curiously, "What does your family do?" She hesitated, then replied with a smile, "Nothing interesting." Daniel shrugged. "Doesn't matter. I like who you are." She believed him, but that conversation had stayed with her. The one moment she almost told the truth. Later that night, lying beside him under a blanket of stars, she whispered, "If you love me, you'll love me for who I am, not what I come from." He kissed her and said, "That's the only way I know how." She never brought it up again. In the present, silence gripped the Morgan estate. Elena stood on the edge of the sprawling balcony, arms wrapped around herself. The chill in the air matched the quiet storm inside her. Then came the sound of approaching footsteps, sharp, deliberate. James Morgan. He hadn't visited her in weeks. He didn't call after the divorce notice. Didn't send condolences. Didn't ask. But now he was here. Elena turned, expecting cold fury. What she saw was worse, disappointment. He stopped in front of her, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. "You look thinner," he said flatly. "I'm fine." He raised a brow. "You're many things. A good liar has never been one of them." She looked away, ashamed. Mr. Morgan moved past her and surveyed the skyline. "I gave you space because you asked for it, but I won't stand by while that boy tears you apart." "It's over," she said softly. "He's gone." "That's not what I meant." She blinked. "Then what?" He finally turned, and the mask dropped. There was steel in his eyes now. "He doesn't know, does he?" Silence. "Elena." "No," she whispered. "He never knew." Mr. Morgan stepped closer, voice low. "You married a man who didn't know you were the heir to a billion-dollar empire." "I didn't want him to know," she said, defensive now. "I wanted someone who loved me for me. Not the money. Not the name. Me." "And did he?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't respond. Mr. Morgan nodded slowly, jaw tight. "Exactly." He turned, pacing. "Do you know what would have happened if he had known? He would have come for the money sooner. Moved faster. Dug in deeper. You gave him your heart thinking that would be enough." Her voice cracked. "It should have been." He stared at her. But it wasn't. She looked away, shame weighing heavy. "I was stupid." "No," he said quietly. "You were hopeful. There's a difference. But now, we deal with reality." Elena turned to him slowly. "What are you saying?" He stepped forward, calm and measured, like a man who's plotted wars from behind glass walls. "We're going to destroy him." The words hung in the air like thunder before the lightning strike. Elena blinked. "What?" Mr. Morgan's tone sharpened. "You gave him a chance to love you. He took advantage. He lied, cheated, and discarded you like you were disposable." His voice darkened. "No one treats a Morgan that way. Dada." "Listen to me," he cut in. "He left because he thought you were powerless. Because he thought you were just another socialite with too many shoes and no spine. He has no idea who he just crossed." She swallowed hard, uncertain. "You want revenge." He nodded once. "And you're going to help me." Elena stared at him, the weight of his plan settling in. Her first instinct was to refuse. Retaliation wasn't her nature. She wanted to heal, not destroy. But then she remembered the smirk on Daniel's face. The ease with which he walked away. The suitcase already packed. The indifference in his voice when he said, "You're not the woman I married." Maybe he was right. Maybe she wasn't that woman anymore. Maybe she was something stronger. Something colder. Elena's voice was calm. "What do you have in mind?" Her father's lips curled into something just shy of a smile. "First, we follow the money. The fake accounts. The hotel charges. The woman he thought he was hiding." She blinked. "You've already started." "I never stopped watching him." Elena exhaled, nerves colliding with adrenaline. "What then?" "We take everything. His reputation, his assets, whatever illusion of power he thinks he has. He took from you what can't be replaced. Now we make sure he never takes from anyone again." Elena walked back to the balcony's edge. The city below felt different now, no longer a world she floated above, but a battlefield waiting. She turned to her father. "You'll need my signature to freeze the trust accounts." "I already have the paperwork." Of course he did. She gave him a half-smile. "You always said the best deals are made after betrayal." Mr. Morgan raised his glass, whiskey neat, already in his hand somehow, and nodded. "And revenge," he said, "is best served from a penthouse." Daniel adjusted the cuffs of his custom blazer as he stepped into the private downtown office. The law firm's walls were lined with framed degrees and rare art. Exactly the kind of place he'd always envisioned himself walking into, not as a client, but as a winner. He greeted the lawyer with a wide, confident grin and took a seat like he owned the place. Across from him, Gregory Hale, a divorce attorney famous for slicing clean through billion-dollar settlements, steepled his fingers and examined Daniel like a mechanic sizing up a car he knew had a cracked engine. "So," Daniel said, leaning back, "you've reviewed everything?" Hale gave a curt nod. "Yes. Your marriage to Elena Morgan. 3 years. No prenuptial agreement. No children. On paper, you're entitled to equitable distribution." Daniel smirked. "Which means I walk out with what? 30? 40 million. Hale's expression didn't change. Daniel's brows rose. "More." There was a pause. "Mr. Carter," Hale said slowly, "you do realize your wife is Elena Morgan, daughter of James Morgan, one of the wealthiest and most litigious men in New York." Daniel's smile faltered. And this isn't a simple divorce," Hale said. "It's war. If your goal is to walk away wealthy, you'll need to prove some form of entitlement. Contribution. Sacrifice. Something that justifies taking from an empire." Daniel scoffed. "I gave her the best years of my life. She was a nobody when I met her. That's not how the court will see it. You lived off her, Mr. Carter. Not the other way around." Daniel's jaw tensed. "There's no prenup. That's my leverage." "True," Hale said coolly. "But James Morgan has leverage too. Influence. Private investigators. Teams of forensic accountants. You won't just be fighting Elena, you'll be fighting an entire legacy." Daniel stood, pacing now. "I need more than this. There has to be something I can use." The lawyer leaned forward. "You're not walking away with a yacht and a supermodel unless you're willing to scorch the earth. Do you have dirt? Secrets? Proof of abuse? Betrayal?" Daniel hesitated, then his phone buzzed. He glanced down and saw the name light up. Jasmine. Later that night, Daniel arrived at a sleek apartment uptown. Jasmine opened the door wearing red silk and a dangerous smile. "You look tense," she purred. "I had a meeting," he said, stepping inside. She poured him whiskey before he even asked. "The lawyer." He nodded, taking a sip. "He says Elena's father will fight. That I won't get much." She curled up beside him on the couch. "Then fight harder." Daniel looked at her, her curves, her confidence, the fire in her voice. "You think I should take them on?" "You didn't waste 3 years playing house with a princess just to leave empty-handed," she said. "Don't be stupid. You deserve a piece of that empire." He smirked. "You always know what to say." She leaned in, kissed him slowly. "Because I know what you want." But as she pulled back, her eyes lingered just a moment too long. Calculating. Detached. He didn't notice. She moved to the window, lighting a cigarette. "What else did the lawyer say?" "That unless I have proof Elena did something wrong, the court will side with her." "Then find something," she said, exhaling smoke. "Or make it up." Daniel raised a brow. "You're ruthless." She turned slowly, smoke curling around her like a halo turned black. "I'm smart. That's what attracted you to me, isn't it?" He grinned. "Among other things." But even as he laughed, her smile didn't reach her eyes. When he turned away to refill his glass, Jasmine checked her phone. A message flashed on screen. Phase 1 complete. He thinks he's in control. She typed back. He'll burn everything for money. Let him. Then she slipped the phone into her pocket. Meanwhile, back in his own penthouse, Daniel began tearing through drawers, looking for anything that could damage Elena. Emails, journals, even old photos. He needed leverage. He remembered her mother's pearls. The ones she said were priceless. He searched for them. Gone. He opened her laptop. Locked. He tried a few guesses, birthdays, favorite songs. No luck. Frustrated, he slammed the lid shut. That's when he heard a knock. It was Jasmine. He frowned. You followed me? She pushed past him, heading straight to the liquor cabinet. You said her father's a problem. So I came to help. You don't even know him. She turned. You're underestimating what I do know. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Why are you so invested in this? She laughed, soft and sharp at once. Because I hate women like Elena. Spoiled, pampered, pretending to be saints while they step on everyone else. And I hate men like you even more, who let themselves be used and don't even realize it. Daniel was caught off guard. What? She stepped closer. You think you're the predator in this story, Daniel. But you're just another man chasing money he never earned. He grabbed her wrist. Watch your mouth. But she smiled, unbothered. There he is. The real Daniel. He released her, shaken. She smoothed her hair. Use that. That fire. Go to court. Demand everything. Tell the world what she did. And when you win, we leave this city together. He stared at her, unsure if she was a dream or a trap. Outside, lightning streaked across the sky. In that single night, the lines began to blur. Daniel thought he was playing everyone. That he'd outsmarted Elena. That he'd charmed Jasmine. But the audience could see what he couldn't. Elena was no longer naive. Mr. Morgan was watching. Jasmine had her own endgame. And Daniel Carter? He was dancing in a ring of fire, one step away from being consumed. The gala sparkled like something out of a dream. Held at the Grand Ivy, a glass and gold architectural wonder hovering above Central Park, the event was filled with society's elite, old money in tailored tuxedos, new wealth in glittering gowns. Champagne flowed like rivers. Cameras flashed with every calculated step. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks as he entered, a smug grin on his face. His custom suit hugged his frame perfectly, his smile even more so. Jasmine trailed behind him in a slinky black dress, every move oozing ambition. Tonight was his moment. He believed, with all the arrogance of a man who'd played his cards too soon, that the game was his to win. He was wrong. Across the room stood Elena, regal, cold, untouchable. Draped in a sapphire gown that caught the light with every subtle movement, she didn't look broken. She didn't even look angry. She looked prepared. Standing beside her, like a titan out of myth, was James Morgan. Silent. Calculating. His presence alone parted the crowd. Daniel hesitated when he saw them. For the first time in weeks, something felt off. He made to approach, but the music cut out. A spotlight hit the center of the marble floor. James Morgan stepped into it. Thank you all for coming tonight, he said, his voice low and commanding. Tonight's gala supports the Morgan Foundation's efforts to rebuild critical infrastructure across rural communities. But before we continue, he paused, I'd like to clear up a rather persistent rumor. Daniel froze. I'd like to introduce you all, Mr. Morgan said, to my daughter, Elena Morgan, sole heiress to the Morgan legacy, with a personal trust fund of $180 million and controlling interest in 3 of our major firms. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel's mouth opened slightly. This wasn't a reveal, it was a detonation. Mr. Morgan continued, eyes locked on Daniel. Some may have mistaken her quiet demeanor for weakness. Some may have assumed she married without a prenuptial agreement. That assumption was incorrect. He held up a sleek black folder. Signed and notarized before the wedding. Ironclad. Legally binding. Zero entitlement. The projector screen behind them flickered to life. Enlarged on it was Daniel's signature, next to the clause. No claim to current or future assets. A few guests gasped. Others whispered. The press had taken notice. Daniel's confidence dissolved like sugar in acid. That's not possible, he muttered. He turned to Jasmine, who'd already taken a cautious step away. Elena stepped forward now, calm and radiant. You don't remember signing it? She asked coolly. It was the night before the wedding. You were drunk. You said, anything for love. The audience chuckled. Daniel looked around, wild-eyed. This isn't real. You forged it. Mr. Morgan's smile was razor-sharp. You can challenge it in court. I welcome it. Just know, my lawyers don't lose. Click. The cameras didn't miss a second. Daniel wasn't just losing money, he was losing face. His entire persona, charming social climber, sophisticated investor, self-made man, was unraveling under the lights. Then came the final blow. Mr. Morgan handed a folder to a reporter. Inside are wire transfers, fake invoices, and evidence of marital misconduct. Consider it a preemptive strike for anyone curious about the divorce proceedings. Daniel lunged forward. You can't do this. Security stepped in calm, subtle, but firm. Elena looked at him, her expression unreadable. You always said I was too soft, she whispered. Maybe I believed you. Until now. Daniel looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Not as a pawn, but as a queen. The cameras kept flashing. His legacy, whatever scraps of it existed, was gone. The crowd parted as he stumbled away, sweat beading at his collar. Jasmine didn't follow. She disappeared into the crowd before he even looked back. Outside, Daniel sat alone in the back of a cab, jacket off, staring at his phone. Every notification was a new headline. Daniel Carter exposed. No fortune, no future. Heiress plays long game. Ex-husband left with nothing. Morgan Gala turns into legal bloodbath. His hands shook. He didn't know whether to scream or disappear. But the world didn't care. It had moved on without him. Inside the gala, Elena stood at the balcony, staring down at the city that had watched her cry, fall, and now rise. Mr. Morgan joined her. You did well tonight, he said. I didn't do anything. You showed up, he replied. You let him bury himself. She nodded, eyes forward. It doesn't feel like a victory. It's not supposed to, he said. It's a correction. They stood in silence a moment. Then she asked, was this always your plan? No, he admitted. I hoped he'd love you. I hoped you'd never have to learn this part of the world. But you did. She turned toward him. So what now? Mr. Morgan exhaled. Now, you take back your name. And we make sure this never happens again. As they rejoined the gala, the crowd parted again. Only this time, not out of fear, but respect. The heiress had returned. Not broken, but reborn. Rain tapped against Daniel's apartment window like a metronome counting down his collapse. The once pristine space was now a reflection of his mind, messy, unkempt, disoriented. Bottles lined the counter. The light stayed dim, and in his hands he clutched a folder of grainy photographs and emails, his last hand. Images of Elena from years ago, laughing with an ex, dancing a little too closely at a college party, her arm linked with someone in Paris. Innocent memories. But Daniel saw currency. He scrolled through draft messages to tabloids. Each headline nastier than the last. Heiress's secret past exposed. Lies behind the glamour. What Elena Morgan doesn't want you to know. His thumb hovered. No reply yet from the reporters. He needed leverage fast. His humiliation at the gala had gone viral. The man who tried to steal a fortune and ended up exposed, mocked, memed, pitted. He picked up his phone and dialed. Elena answered. Her voice was calm. Daniel. He didn't greet her. I have photos. Messages. From before we married. You wouldn't want people to see them, would you? A pause. I think you know how ugly the press can get, he added. Unless we meet privately. She didn't raise her voice. You're grasping at shadows. You're not as clean as you think, he snapped. I don't have to be clean, she said. I just have to be smarter than you. And I am. He laughed, bitter. You've changed. I've grown, she replied. You should try it. He ended the call. But something gnawed at him. She hadn't sounded scared. Or desperate. She sounded prepared. Across the city, in a high-rise suite lined with monitors, Jasmine removed her earpiece and turned to Mr. Morgan. He took the bait. Mr. Morgan nodded once, never taking his eyes off the screen. And he's about to send the photos. Let him. Jasmine walked to a drawer and pulled out a badge. Private Intelligence Bureau. Special Investigations. Her voice was calm, professional now. He made threats. Attempted extortion. He's also sitting on evidence of financial fraud. We've got enough. Elena stood nearby, arms folded, not cold, not cruel, but firm. I want him to do it, she said. I want him to make that final move. Let everyone see who he really is. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. You're sure? Yes, Elena said. He taught me how to be ruthless. Now I'll teach him what it means to face consequences. Back in his apartment, Daniel stood by the window, staring out at the city. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, you've made your move. No sender. The body contained one image, Daniel's message drafts to the tabloids, screen captured from his own device. His breath caught. Then another buzz. A second message. This one showed a hidden camera photo, him with Jasmine. And not just in bed, but exchanging documents. Audio transcript included. He staggered backward, phone falling from his hand. Jasmine. She wasn't his ally. She wasn't even his mistress. She was the trap. The knock at the door was gentle. Daniel opened it, expecting police. But it was Elena. She stepped inside, poised, unreadable. He stammered. What is this? She looked around the room, unfazed by the chaos. I came to see what was left. He laughed hollowly. So this is it? You send your spy to ruin me. She didn't have to try very hard, Elena said. You did it yourself. You think this is justice? He barked. You're heartless. I'm strategic, she replied. You didn't marry a weak girl, Daniel. You married a woman who chose kindness until you mistook it for fragility. He sank onto the couch, defeated. You lied to me. You used me. I protected myself, she said. Something I should have done from the beginning. Daniel's voice cracked. So what now? You humiliate me? Let the world watch me burn? Elena stepped closer. No, she said. I let the world see what you are. That's different. He met her eyes, really met them, for the first time since the night they met. And for a moment, the weight of everything hit him. Not just the money, the reputation, the loss of control. It was the fact that he had never truly known her. And now, he never would. Later that night, the headlines dropped. Morgan Heiress outsmarts ex in undercover sting operation. Scandalous divorce takes explosive turn, former husband under investigation. Private investigator revealed as mistress in high society plot twist. Daniel Carter was trending for all the wrong reasons. Elena, however, was nowhere to be found. She had stepped away from the noise, back into her world of quiet resolve, her empire intact. Mr. Morgan issued no statement. Jasmine returned to her agency. And Daniel? He sat in a dim apartment, the walls of his fantasy crashing in. Not with a bang, but with the brutal silence of someone who thought he was the hunter, only to find he was prey. The clang of the prison gate echoed like the final note of a long, bitter symphony. Elena walked down the stark corridor in heels that clicked with quiet authority, each step a reminder of the woman she had become. She wore no makeup, no designer label, just elegance and simplicity. The guards nodded with polite recognition, knowing exactly who she was. Through the reinforced glass, Daniel sat on the other side of the visitation room, slumped in the gray jumpsuit of a federal inmate. His face, once smug and polished, now looked hollow, haunted by the collapse of his own ambition. He looked up as she entered. Elena, he said, voice hoarse. She didn't sit immediately. Instead, she looked at him for a long moment, not with hatred, not even with anger, but with finality. She finally took the seat. You came, he said, almost surprised. I needed to see it, she replied. Not for closure, for clarity. Daniel scoffed. So what? You're here to watch me rot? No, she said, calm as ever. I'm here to say goodbye. He blinked, confused. Just like that. You forged documents in my name, she said, voice even. You tried to frame me, Daniel. You would have watched me fall to save yourself. There's no going back from that. I panicked, he mumbled. I was desperate. She leaned in, lowering her voice. You were never desperate. You were entitled. You thought I was your stepping stone. And now you've fallen. Daniel's lips twitched into a bitter smile. So you've finally become your father. No, she said, rising. I've become me. She turned to leave. Elena, he called. She paused, without facing him. I did love you, he said. She exhaled softly, almost sadly. Then that's the worst part, she replied, and walked out. Outside, the sky hung heavy with the promise of rain, but Elena welcomed it. She didn't rush. There was no more running, no more hiding. The world knew her now. Not just as the daughter of James Morgan, not as the woman who'd married wrong, but as someone who had risen. Quietly. Completely. As the car pulled up, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her father. Board voted. Welcome to Morgan Global's executive committee. You earned it. She allowed herself a small smile, tucked the phone away, and stepped into the back seat. That night, Elena stood on the rooftop of her penthouse, wind brushing through her hair. Below her, New York pulsed with lights and movement, unaware of the war she'd just won. But it wasn't about war. It was about survival and then evolution. She watched the city like someone who had learned not to conquer it, but to outlast it. Flashbacks flickered in her mind. The divorce letter, cold and clinical. The silence that followed. Her father's cold stare softening with respect. Jasmine's reveal. Daniel's public undoing. Her own transformation. There had been tears. But not tonight. Tonight was peace. Behind her, the rooftop door opened. Mr. Morgan stepped out, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He handed one to her, wordless. To freedom, she said with a half-smile. To legacy, he replied. They clinked glasses. The champagne fizzed quietly, almost reverently. I never thought you'd come through all of this like this, he admitted. I didn't either, she replied. But I'm glad I did. He looked at her with something new in his eyes, not pride, not protection. Respect. I won't need to fight your battles anymore, he said. No, she agreed. But thank you for fighting the first one. They drank. The lights of the skyline glimmered like distant stars, her city, now fully hers. Down below, the world turned. News outlets updated headlines. Elena Morgan joins Morgan Global Leadership, first female executive in family's history. From divorce scandal to power player, how Elena Morgan became the heiress to watch. Ex-husband of heiress sentenced for attempted fraud, identity forgery. But Elena didn't need headlines to define her anymore. She had rewritten her own story. Inside the apartment, she walked past a mirror and paused. She looked at herself, not through the lens of a man's gaze, not through society's expectations. Just herself. And she liked who looked back. Not perfect, but powerful. Somewhere across the city, in a prison cell lit by flickering fluorescent light, Daniel sat on his cot, staring at the wall. He had nothing left, no money, no status, no allies. Just memories. And regret. His only audience now was silence. And it did not applaud. Back on the rooftop, Elena placed her empty glass on the ledge, closed her eyes for a moment, and let the wind carry the last of the pain away. She opened her eyes, smiled, and walked back inside toward a new beginning. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you are watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Elena's transformation? Did Daniel get what he deserved? Were you surprised by Jasmine's true identity, or inspired by Mr. Morgan's quiet strength? This was a story of betrayal, power, and redemption, centered around Elena, Daniel, Jasmine, and Mr. Morgan. Your support helps us bring more powerful narratives to life, so don't miss the next twist. Hit that notification bell. We've got more coming.